Hello, everybody. I hit the record in about 2 seconds. I think my mind already went. Psh. That is called a busy brain. Ever done that? Like where you literally say or do something and the next second it's like it's gone? Maybe that's just aging. I don't know. No, honestly, lots of different stressors and things can affect us. And that's kind of a little bit about what I'm talking about today. Not the main point, but the topic for today in today's live conversation is about, and now I want to make sure that I have the comment section up. So if you have a comment, you can go ahead and drop that in either from Facebook or from YouTube. But moving forward, when life doesn't go according to plan, and that can encapsulate so many different scenarios, right? How many times have we set out to do something and we think we're even doing the right thing, we're doing some good things, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't seem to work. Or no matter how hard you try to do better, to figure out the next thing that you need to do, and to get yourself all mojoed up, if that makes sense, like getting that mojo inside of you, like this motivation, this energy, and the inspiration to do something, but either you just don't get it done or you've done hard things, you've put in the work, you've put in the time and energy to understand something, and the outcome is not what you want. Well, that disappointment um, is something, we all experience at different levels, but when it keeps happening, it builds up. It can lead to really deep places inside of us, deep frustrations. And honestly, like two different types of responses where we can either kind of go into this shutdown, nothing matters anymore, I'm giving up, I don't know what else to do, what's the point? Or another extreme, which is kind of, well, I'm just going to keep pulling up my bootstraps and then I'm just going to do better. And I have to do this all on my own. It's all up to me. And I see this pattern kind of play out not just in our own like life areas with other people or circumstances we're trying to improve something, but with God. I wrote an article several years ago that I even wrote a follow up to, and it's still not what I want to have out there. So I'm working on this and I want to have some additional blog posts at some point on this topic, but it has to do with feeling disappointed with God. Um, so the pattern that I see that we kind of play out for ourselves and also play out with God is if I do this, then God's going to do this. So if I do A, God does B, and the outcome is C, because that's the way it's supposed to work. And so you may try harder and harder to do more and more and more to do A, because that's what you're supposed to do. And that supposed to could be messages of like, this is what I should be doing that we've heard from other people or that we've internalized for ourselves. It could be messages that we've brought together from the way that we understand God and His Word and the way that He works, because God calls us to certain things like kindness, and He expresses things throughout Scripture that talk about I don't know if this is the right word, but like ways of being that actually are really good for us, but it can become this like his invitation. Let me give an example because I feel like I'm being too vague on this. So an example of scripture that can get a little bit misconstrued in the way that we interpret it, and that can add burden for ourselves when we're expecting certain things. So scripture says many, many times, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. The message that can come across with the shoulds and with the expectations is, oh, I'm not supposed to have fear at all. Having fear means I'm doing something wrong or that I'm bad, and I should be a better Christian, keeping in mind that's probably not the way that the brain is necessarily specifically thinking of it. But as you hear me say this, just see if in some way the concept resonates with an experiences you've had. The message of distortion, do not fear, do not fear. Well, if I feel fear, just kind of like if I feel sadness or anger or something, That means I'm not trusting enough. Something is wrong. And so we bring this misunderstanding, it all becomes a problem for us. Okay, so what do we expect? We expect of ourselves to pray differently or to shape up in some way so that God will be pleased. We're doing what God expects. And that means that if we're doing that, God's going to do this. And that means now I'm going to experience peace. Now I'm going to have whatever. And the thing is that this pattern plays out in so many of our lives without us having any awareness even that it's happening. We may say just the opposite. No, of course, I know that God's with me in fear. Or like, because the do not fear verses, they're if you look through them, they're paired with, for I am with you. I see the do not fear verses now as this is God's invitation to say, hey, you don't have to fear. I'm with you. And his presence with us helps us have a different experience from what is happening inside of us when we're feeling fear. Because we may be afraid because something's not actually safe or good for us, and that's a good fear. We may be afraid because it's new and we don't have the skill set yet to navigate what is new and different. Um, like saying no when you're not used to saying no. And that can feel scary. You're not used to doing it. You don't know, your brain and body don't know yet how to get through to the other side sometimes. And so that fear can build up. Imagine God bringing that invitation, I'm with you. You don't have to fear, I'm with you, which brings the fear down and gives us the courage to grow and to continue. So it's kind of a little segue, but it ties into this concept of how we end up having expectations on ourselves and of God, and then of the outcomes that look a very specific way. And sometimes what I've noticed for myself and then for other people that I work with as well is that we can set out to have a good goal. For example, I want to draw closer to God, so I want to read scripture every day or something like that. That's a good goal, right? Or we have a good goal of some habits in our personal lives, in the way that we operate, and it's a good thing. And still, what we end up doing is somehow it gets distorted that there's this expectation of how perfectly we're going to show up suddenly different. Like if we're trying to change an area of our life that's been a challenge for us, that we're going to show up differently. I mean, think about January. This is January. The goals and the resolutions that we all make, somehow something's going to be different. So we expect that of ourselves, to have already what we need to make that happen, to make that different. And then we can idealize and give this bigger picture in our minds of what it's going to look like on the other side. Can be really helpful because it helps us move forward to something that we want, that we see as possible, that is hopeful. And it's hopeful to know that if God is calling us towards something, that he's going to be with us. All those things are helpful and hopeful. But the vision that we have of what it looks like can become something that we hold to very tightly, that if it doesn't look that way on the other side, something is wrong with me, or something is wrong with God, or something is wrong with other people. Somewhere there's blame. And what may happen is that part of the process is trusting that when things are different and asking God to meet us in the little changes along the way. So our brains want to go from like here to there. We want quick fixes, right? We do that with other people. We do that with ourselves. Okay, if it's not happening, then this is what I need to do next. This is how I should do it, and what I believe will happen. Somebody else said that this is the way to do it, so now I'm just going to somehow make this happen. And then it's disappointment again. I started off the habit room earlier. It was in November when I started the habit room with this idea that a lot of us experience. Okay, when I get to the new year, somehow this is going to be the year. But the thing is that with that ideal vision of what we want to see different, we're missing parts of reality in a sense of like the truth of what do we really need when we just may not even know what we need yet. The reality of other things that rob us of our time or distract us and deter us from moving forward. Those could be internal obstacles. It could be actual challenges. It could be that we just didn't take into account other factors. But because we start off here and get to another place and say, oh, well, I'm supposed to be here, without the tools to navigate that space in between, it's like, wait a minute, well, somewhere there has to be a problem, and it's either me or it's God or it's something else. I got to put the blame somewhere. But it may not be that it's even a problem. Is this resonating at all? Does this make sense? Or have any of you experienced that? I've noticed recently that so much of the work that I do is actually helping people work through a process of change. And I think that process really helps to reduce the level of shame and guilt and deep disappointment that we experience with ourselves, other people, and with God. Because if it's always about it's a problem and it's bad, then then somehow we're supposed to know all the perfect answers before we even start. Because if it's a problem, then we just did the wrong thing. And if we just do the right thing, we could fix it. But that leaves us in an exhausting position. It leaves us in a position of trusting in ourselves. No matter how much we talk about trusting God, even saying, I just need to trust God, and that's what's going to make me through, that's what's going to help me get through, that's where God's going to show up, that ends up being so tiring. And I literally feel tears as I think about this and how that it has impacted me and how it might be impacting you and other people. This never ending cycle of constantly striving and having to do something differently in order to experience something better. And the more we do the good thing, when the better doesn't happen, the deeper that disappointment goes. And then we don't even know what to do with God anymore. So the process of change, I think, does many, many different things for us. One, it strengthens us from the inside out. It helps to clarify for us things that we can do um, without it being so much about what we have to do. So, like, there's a difference between being stuck in a position where I'm just supposed to do this and I should do versus here's some options of what I can do. And this process of change isn't easy. It's like we start to feel things in our body, we get frustrated, and we don't know how to hold in that space where things are in process sometimes. So the quick thing is to just try to do something better. All right, so let's talk about the process a little bit, and I'm going to talk about how I'm applying some of this today. And a quick little side note. So when we were at the ranch, and the story about the ranch, I think you can find in the video, Grace for Growth After Seasons of Stress and Trauma. I think that one's on my channel. I think that's where I share some of the story of the ranch. I'm not going to go into it today. But the utter exhaustion and the effects of trauma in my body, the anxiety, etc., that were so intense. There was also in that place a deep disappointment because I was trying to do everything that God asked me to do. And I was disappointed because, well, other people aren't doing the things that I'm doing, and they're not willing to give up as much as I'm willing to give up. So, how the heck am I in this place now? Why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? I wouldn't be able to tell you that I even thought that at the time. It took a while for me to recognize that I was still striving so much to do, and I'm still do. I mean, this is like a lifelong struggle that we all tend to do this, but how much inside of me was trying to be a better Christian. And the outcome of that left me disconnected from my needs. It left me exhausted and actually kind of more, I will say, aligning with the message that I'd had already for a long time that my needs didn't matter. So that I could just give it all up because somehow I'm going to be, so now I got to be superhuman because my needs don't matter. Okay, so healing process big time begins after we come back from the ranch and this journey that I've been on now. And when I'm noticing that certain things are not working out or that I've had goals that just aren't happening, my approach to it is so um, more gentle and less filled with shame. It's much more about being an observer of life, holding space for what is happening and saying, okay, God, if I'm missing something, will you show this to me? But I'm going to move forward with the best understanding that I have. And this is what I see. I do want to take different steps. So it's not that I don't want to do something, but I don't want to be driven by all the things that I feel like I have to do. And just even having the options can bring a relief to our nervous systems. Okay, so I wrote it in the newsletter a little bit, this list, and I kind of keep changing it a little bit, so probably could use some fine tuning. But essentially, when you're noticing you have been doing XYZ and you're expecting so much of yourself or from God, from other people, you're experiencing disappointment. Like, okay, the things I thought would go according to plan, and then I thought it was going to go according to plan this time, and then I tried again and it's still not working. You're noticing that happening. That's a pattern. You're noticing that there's disappointment. Pause. Literally, when I pause, it's taking a deep breath, allow my brain a moment to stop the spiraling of where it's all going to go, to say, okay, wait, I want to pause and actually notice what is happening. In the Unleash Sheets tool, there is the process of you're first identifying things that you observe, the facts, the information. What's happening is that section. So here's what we're doing. We're pausing and noticing what is it that's happening. Okay, I said I was going to do this goal by this time, and I kind of thought in the back of my head that I could accomplish 50 things. And the reality is I've only got 5 things done and 10 things are still in progress. And then when I also notice what's happening, I'm noticing how I'm impacted by it. This isn't an easy process for a lot of us because it may be that you've lived for so long from a place of having to keep doing and doing and doing and performing. There hasn't been a place for you to have needs or have your needs matter, or that the different emotions and thoughts and feelings that you have as you're working through, as you're wrestling through something, that they matter. Because immediately you should be a better Christian, you should fix it, and you should be praying. You should just remember you got to trust God, or remember this verse, and you got to cling to these things. That blocks us from the power of God with us in the process of change. So pausing and noticing, what is it that's been happening? How is that impacting me? And what is the outcome around me? Maybe I've been spinning in circles so much because I'm so like I just got to do all these different things, and my stress level, the way stress lives out in me, whether I become maybe grumpy and I pull back, or if I'm irritable with other people, or I I can't give to anyone else because I don't have the bandwidth to do so. Those are all things that are happening. Our brain wants to put a meaning to that about who we are. So the shame creeps up, and it starts to apply this meaning of, oh, that means you're lazy, or you messed up and you're just bad. You're the problem. Notice those thoughts. Notice the message. For now, I want you to notice it literally as if you were observing it as a message coming at you or coming from inside you, however, just notice it. Pausing and noticing it's there. And you might need additional emotional support as you're noticing that. It might feel really overwhelming and scary. If you need to notice for a second or two, go with that. And then just notice that it's difficult to notice. That is okay. There are so many different times when I'm working with clients that as we're kind of testing to see where are we in a process and what is comfortable enough for us today. But we want to honor how things are today. So we're noticing what is, noticing when it's just challenging, because we're also in that process identifying what is there. If we continue the pattern that we may be used to of dismissing it, denying it, believing that we shouldn't have that problem, that we should just move on and we just have to be somewhere else, we are dismissing and denying our own reality and lived experiences where God wants to meet us. We can be having all these different frustrations around what didn't happen and feel like God is so distant, but we're trying to get, I'm not saying this has always happened, but I have definitely seen this happen. So tell me if this resonates or not. But could there be times when we're feeling like God isn't there or with us because we're trying to get him to give us a specific answer, to show up in a specific way, or to give us the specific direction we're supposed to go in, or to do something specific in someone else's life because I did this and now he's supposed to show up this way. But trust means we don't know, or faith, we don't know. So stepping back and noticing what's actually happening and identifying it, that's some information that we have about what is going on. And what could it be like to bring that before God and to say, "Huh, yeah, I'm seeing this happen. I'm struggling because I feel the shame coming up. I feel bad and I don't even know what to do with all this. It feels overwhelming." Um, to bring that honestly before God. That is also part of the Unleash Sheets process. We're identifying what's happening. We're identifying our real thoughts and feelings and connecting to it, identifying it, noticing it so that we can reflect on it. Bringing it before God and allowing Him space to meet us where we are right now. Maybe we notice something, maybe we don't. That's okay. The process starts with simply noticing. What do you notice? And if all that is my head is spinning and I can't even stop thinking these thoughts, that is what you're noticing. Notice that. Um, okay, so before I go into the next steps, let me apply this to kind of where I've been at the last few months. I reached numerous tech obstacles again at the end of 2023, which came up when I was trying to get Unleash Sheets out there originally. There was a lot of tech issues. And if you don't know this about content creators, we do a lot in the background. There's a lot we need to understand about marketing and website design and graphic design and like connections between like the newsletter system and different websites and all these different things. Well, one of the tools that I was using, it's very expensive and I just couldn't afford to keep it. That's the reality. I could not afford to keep it. I wanted to pretend like I could keep doing it, but it wasn't going to be sustainable long term and just don't have the income from what I'm doing to take care of that. So I started exploring other options and one after another, a couple different things happened. I was running into a lot of stumbling blocks in my own process, for one thing. And then I would start to move towards a different technology. And then, sure enough, there was numerous issues that just suddenly showed up when it was great for everybody else. And it was just like, I kept trying and kept trying. And I'm exhausted at this point, exploring this stuff. So at the end of the year, I was feeling pretty disappointed with myself too, that I had not accomplished some of the things that I thought I should easily have been able to do. And maybe I would have been able to if several other factors, right? And so as I'm stepping back to pause and notice and identify without shame, without the guilt messages. I want to notice what is happening and include the reality of parts that I might have played, um, ways that I get distracted or go down bunny holes or maybe spend too much time in one area and it wasn't actually serving me, like any of those different things, to be able to notice that that is something that happens. It's not what I want to have happen. So I would like to see change in the future. And then what does it take for me to start implementing change? And then at the same time, there were other things that were just plain frustrating. So I also reached this point of exhaustion again and took some time off around the holidays and then just trying to get geared up in the beginning of the new year, sensing I really need some specific projects to be my primary area of focus. And so I this year in 2024, my first areas of focus are going to be on video. Um, so YouTube, just one type of content, but I like doing these live videos, for example. But I also want to be able to do some single topic videos that are maybe 20 minutes long. And I want to do a podcast, a video podcast. And so I wanted to bring that up today just to get your feedback. If there's a preference you have, do you like the live meetup as an idea? Is it something that you want to engage in? Would you prefer very point driven topics that are not live? Or would you prefer a podcast and some kind of a combination there where I could just do video and podcast at the same time? You could either watch it or listen to it. That's one thing. And then the courses and the membership, Cultivate Together is a primary one. And we just finished the habit room, moving forward with towards what matters without burden or something like that. It was such a blessing to do that 12-week group. And I really would like to do it again. But in order to have the things available that I'm trying to work on, it takes so much tech work in the background. And just a quick mention, the third thing would be workshops and events. So I'm going to try to make sure I mention those because I have a couple coming up that I wanted to let you know about. But I'm noticing as I'm reflecting back what is happening and then what's going on, how's it impacting me? I'm feeling super exhausted. I'm stressed because the finances aren't, what I thought they could be at this point. Um, all kinds of different things that are going on. What do I want to do with that? Reflecting on how it's impacting me and what my thought process even is helps me step back a little bit so that I can remember there are choices. I may feel like, you may feel like you have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to do this. But maybe reflect. Do you have to? What would happen if you didn't? Okay, so you could see certain things happening if you didn't do what you thought you had to do. Okay, how could you get through that? Sometimes even that level of reflection can help us identify our internal blocks of not moving forward because when we feel like we have to do something, there's like this little connection in the brain, this kind of fear signal that something, it's almost like it feels like you're going to die because you don't know yet how to make it through. But if you didn't do it, you have to face something different. Can I get through that? How would I get through that? It gives your brain some options to move with. So do you see how we're exploring this more as an observer versus the shame heavy burden of I have to? So noticing that pattern as information. Okay, then information may tell me that I have done something that was unhealthy for me or hurt somebody else. Somebody else was feeling hurt, experiencing whatever because of the decisions I was making. That doesn't feel good. But living in that reality helps us be able to see the different choices that we have and feel the freedom of having choices, to feel the release and the relief of all that burden that kind of pushes all the anxiety in us so that we can move forward. So, so I'm reflecting and I'm noticing, you know what? I've got some patterns in place that definitely are not serving me well because I didn't know how to make a decision on organizing certain things and digitally. So that is now coming up in very challenging ways. Like I'm constantly running up against where is that? Wait, where is that? And then I have duplicates over here. So I've been taking time too to clean up, reorder, process, etc. And I could go into a place of, oh, here we go again. Here's another year where this didn't happen. This is what I'm not getting done. And I do feel sad that those things aren't happening. I wish that they were happening. And so I want to honor that emotion that comes up, that I do feel sad about that, and that I feel like I've let people down. Honor that. And people may feel let down or frustrated. And I, I don't like that. And at the same time, I don't want that to take me off track of doing the things that I do believe God has called me to do and the vision that I have and how I can serve people. So the reflecting and noticing and that pause to even allow space for the reality of it doesn't feel good. Okay, is there something that can be different? What are my options? What are some options? So I started kind of doing spinning my wheels on the weekends and some of the digital cleanup. And then I realized, wow, this is a bigger process than I can get done in a short amount of time. So I can't put everything else off until this is done. I'm gonna have to do the what has to be done now and keep working on this alongside of everything else. So that reflective piece, I could feel the tension inside of me, like, no, I just want it all done. But honoring that this is what's helpful. This is what's needed right now. So that brings me back to the needs underneath our expectations and the way that we think things will play out. I want to check in real quick. Robin says observing and staying objective seems like a good idea instead of just feeling shame for not measuring up. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a practice that it takes time to do. Like we need to practice it to help our brains build new pathways to observe. And I do that a lot with clients and helping us use different parts of the brain. And I'm telling you that pausing and noticing isn't easy, but it is so powerful and healing over time. It's not the quick fix answer, but in that place, God does give us strength and he is going to be with us. And we may feel challenged by the Holy Spirit. We may be, whew, like, whoa, Lord, I can't take any more. But just notice and invite yourself into God's space. Like he's already there. Okay, so the pausing, noticing, identifying, and reflecting with choices, and also reflecting on what is needed. And those needs, if they actually do matter, then I need to approach it differently than my brain is inclined to do, because the inclination, when we've learned over time that our needs don't matter, and we've even trained ourselves how that doesn't really matter. I don't really need this. I just need to keep going. I just have to keep doing this. It keeps that striving going. And what comes after that? Utter exhaustion, physical conditions that occur because stress is so high. Identifying needs is not easy. So I'm feeling like the weight of this big picture because I asked different people, like, what do you need? And most of us can't even say, I don't know what I need. Many of us have also experienced that if we had a need, we try to get it met. Well, other people couldn't meet it or refused to meet it or denied it, different experiences that we now lean it kind of align with and saying, okay, well, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to keep pulling my bootstraps and do better. But what is needed is still needed. If the disappointment has built up over time, you may need some help processing the weight of that. Like that, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, um, like think of a big grief, big loss in your life, something that emotionally starts to feel really big. Well, especially when it's been not been denied and it's growing and growing and growing over time, it doesn't just get gobbled up and gone in one day. If your house was full of amazing food, or like in some of the houses where it's all food full of gunk, it doesn't get cleaned up. It doesn't get processed through in a moment. It does take time. But when you continue to do that, it makes space for something else. So, big emotions, big disappointments that have built up over time, you may need different sources of people to help process and just validate the experience, while you're also noticing and asking yourself, like, what are some options? What options do I have today based on what's happening? Um, okay, so yes. Oh, all right. Robin's working on her book. Yay, good for her. We'll see her around here again. Um, what are some options that I have today? So in the habit room, one of the very first things that we did, we started off with setting the stage to honor who we are as we show up today, and who we are as God sees us to be. Tension between the two. We're not already where we want to be. We're not already in our full design, but we're honoring what is, so that we can deal with and work through that and not allow the disappointments or the deep feelings that have gotten bigger to get even bigger, but to start allowing that to shift, to metabolize, and to give us more space and capacity inside. So as I'm reflecting back, and now it's, I mean, looking back on the challenges recently are so much different than when we came back from the ranch with the trauma. But still, there was this place of reaching, I can't do it this way anymore. After the ranch, it was, God, I have been living with fears and certain things in my life that I cannot do anymore. Way beyond exhaustion. It took a lot for me to get there. So I get there faster these days. And now, um, just recently noticing, work patterns and processes that were not working for me. And as a result, leading to the disappointment, and then also not being able to do the things that I want to do. So I need to honor what is. I need to honor the limitations around that and honor the reality of it. And where it feels really challenging, I ask God to meet me there, experience His presence with me, strengthening me, and other people. I have friends who understand this world of content creation, etc., that I can talk to, that can also remind me when I feel like, what's the point anymore? Why am I even doing this? I'm overworking myself for what reason? Because that happens to all of us as content creators at some point, probably like this. Um, but that I have people that help me metabolize some of what doesn't feel good there, or the disappointment that I'm feeling, so that it doesn't stick and stay and keep me stuck. Hi, Em. Your blessing. Oh, I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for joining. And I appreciate your kind words as well. I always kind of wonder, am I just babbling? That's why I wonder if the live meetup should maybe shift into these topic-specific videos. But the truth is, when I'm honest and reflecting the reality of my limitations at this moment, or what they've been, is that it's easier for me just to hop on video and to talk about a topic, and hopefully engage with others, and either answer questions or engage with you here. That's pretty easy for me to do. Um, but I really do want to do the podcast too. So if you would like that, let me know your preference. In any case, I know it's not easy when the emotions feel big and the disappointment is deep. So I want to honor how that happens for you and how that's impacted you and other people, because that is reality. It is really big. And so, in our communities, in the Christian community, a lot of times when we start to express the disappointment, um, many times people don't know what to do with it. And so we get all kinds of different responses. And it can be like this trying to put a bow on everything. Well, just remember and moving you immediately out of something that doesn't feel good into something that fixes everything, right? We talked about the quick fixes. And there's a nuance to that, or a twist that I'd like to offer that I think helps us grow and do the metabolizing process so that what is really big doesn't sink even deeper or get bigger. Um, and so that it can actually be processed in this, like facing the reality. So part of that is there is validity to the pain, to the impact, to how much you wanted something that you didn't get, or to the way that we thought God was going to show up and it didn't happen. That is real. And and God is still who he is. He doesn't change. And he does want to provide for you. And we may be missing something that we just don't even know yet that we need, because we don't know how to connect to our needs yet. Like there's all kinds of other pieces to the picture that we may not yet understand. And in that, I hope that that feels hopeful for others if the disappointment is really deep and bringing us down. So we want to be truthful and honoring what is there, not dismissing it, denying it, just trying to make it like, oh, it should just be great because you should just put a smile on and pretend like nothing's wrong. And at the same time, giving room for the messy process of growth that sometimes feels confused, sometimes feels angry, sometimes blames God, sometimes we're feeling shame for ourselves. Like that's kind of in different spaces, and the hope that anchors the truth of who God is, and um, how He sees you, the truth of needs that maybe others around you can meet or cannot meet, but do you even know what they are? The the Here's an example. When I sense God speak to me saying, I've given you what you need, now walk in it. Pivotal time. What the heck? I was upset. I was like, but no, God, you're supposed to be doing this. I'm already doing everything I know to do. I know. And part of that for me was areas of self-development that I didn't feel like was okay. Areas of emotional honesty that I didn't feel safe or okay with, because I shouldn't be angry with God. I shouldn't be frustrated with God. I should always, if I just trust Him, that means I'm just going to be okay with whatever. But that left out so much of the reality of how God was developing and shaping me and helping me trust Him in a different way. And so it can be that we sometimes just don't know that we get to make decisions when we feel like we have to do one thing. There may be other options that we just don't know about yet. We may not know yet how to communicate effectively with another person if we have to set a limit, or if things need to change. We may not have the inner resources yet to try new, let's say, church groups, community groups, new experiences socially with other people to build our social support system so that we have other relationships around us. Maybe we just don't have the information of how to do that, where to go with it, how to reach out to people. And granted, I know that in a lot of places it is difficult, when people just aren't always easy to talk to, but there are people that want to connect, and those relationships are energizing. When you can find some imperfect relationships with other people to build that social support system, that can provide fuel for you and inner courage so that you can do something that has felt really difficult for a long time in life. And that's like trying something new, for example. So going back to the beginning thing, doing this, expecting it to be A, like if we do A, God does B, and I get C, is very limited. And what I'm offering here is a process that evaluates the reality of, okay, well, if I did this, why did I do it? So we're kind of in the reflection part, we're also noticing things like what motivated me? What was the meaning that I had around this particular situation? Did some of that change? What did I expect of myself or of God? Was that a realistic expectation? I may have expected, like a toddler doesn't run and climb a mountain the next day. And sometimes we expect ourselves to do things that we just don't have the training for yet, or the resources that we need, but we suddenly just expect ourselves to do it. Or we expect other people to act a certain way because we think that's just, if it's the right thing to do and they're trying to do good things, then they should be doing it. So we get so frustrated when it doesn't happen. Okay, it did happen. And somebody maybe really did hurt you or cause difficulties because of a decision they made or things that they said. And that is real. And you can develop how you're going to respond, find new ways to um, move forward for yourself. So, like, somebody does something, says something to you, and it's very negative and it's derogatory, it's condemning, it's critical, etc. Maybe you hear that a lot from someone, and so you start giving up, and you're like, "Nope, this doesn't matter. I'm not going to do it anymore," because it feels like, what's the point? Well, maybe what you need is to be around some other people. Maybe you need to hear some additional voices, or maybe you need to step up and I'm not telling you what you need. I'm just trying to give ideas, like exploring what is it for you. I don't know. But what would it be like to so well, I'm still gonna try this and I'm gonna see because I think someone else is appreciating this and I'm gonna let God be the one to tell me if I need to stop or not. Instead of just assuming that God must not want me to do it because somebody else told me I shouldn't do it or because it was difficult to do. Now I'm just saying, oh, whoops, I guess that's not the door because it wasn't easy. Anyway, I'm gonna get a sidetrack on that. So in this process of checking with ourselves, pausing, noticing, identifying, reflecting, we're noticing again. Wow. Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed because this feels like a lot. So, what I mentioned before, I'm reassessing processes at this point. I'm like practically reassessing some tools, etc. But reassessing even how I'm approaching the process. So, and what habits can I build that will help me be more effective? For example, reassessing what I assume to be the case that may not be. Is there more to this picture than I thought originally? For example, I may assume that, like some of the tools that I tried, I got lots of reviews, people saying how great it is. I assume because of the features, it's going to be amazing, and suddenly everything's going to be a breeze. Oh, whoops. If I'm reassessing, I'm like, well, okay, honestly, that wasn't quite what I thought. And is it actually the thing I need? And do I keep approaching something based on what I'm assuming is going to be the quick fix, or do I need to approach it a little bit differently? So that's kind of getting into the weeds there, but reassessing and what's happening to help you lean into the options, the choices. It can feel like you're completely trapped. That's what happens in the brain, especially when your needs go unmet and denied or dismissed for so long. And then you're used to, serving other people, for example, or just kind of shutting down completely. It can feel so much like I don't have a choice. I just have to live with this. That is the choice. Or that your choices are super limited to A and B, when the reality is what if A and B aren't the choices? What if they're not the options? What if it's something you haven't even thought of? Or what if there are other options? What could they be? Allowing the brain to have a space to explore that, allowing the spirit to hold it loosely enough with God to say, Lord, what are these other options? Can you help explore? Can I, conversation with somebody, maybe they're helping me see something that I can't, but maybe even once I notice that these are different choices, I still end up making the same choice, but I'm doing it with a different connection to the choice that I'm making because I'm making it as a choice and not as a have to, supposed to, should. And that's like, just if I don't do it, then I'm going to be bad, like this weight that comes with that. And sometimes there's a couple of bad choices, and the reality is we have to face one of them, and we can choose which one we're going to face, can choose what resources we have to face whatever is difficult. So really the highlight of the process is pausing, noticing what is, reflecting on it, reassessing, and making a choice. When it feels like there's no choices, just take a breath, just connecting to it feels like there's no choices. And even that, I'm going to bring before God and say, I feel stuck. I feel trapped, like there isn't a choice. Sometimes there isn't a choice in the expectation that we have. For example, at the ranch, when we were committed to the kids. It was not a choice that I wanted to make to just say, suddenly we're abandoning all the kids and we got to go, vamonos. We had that commitment to think of. So that was a choice. I chose to stay committed to it. But that also led me to a place of feeling very, very, very trapped in the situation that was so stressful that I couldn't escape the stress. So other choices that I didn't know initially, but they were the different moments to take in the good that was coming, because my brain wanted to go to all the negative and all the things that weren't happening that should be happening, etc. But all those moments of taking in, oh wow, these people actually showed up to help us, or this happened today, or here I'm waking up, I've got 5 minutes to take in the beauty of the outdoors, especially in the spring in Texas. There's all the wildflowers, and taking that in. There's a lot I don't like. There's a lot that feels stressful. There are good things too. And it is a choice that I can allow myself to take that in for a few seconds. I can allow myself to take in kind words, even grace for myself, that I'm not doing it better or perfectly in some way. That's a choice I can make. Doesn't feel easy. Bit by bit, little bit by little bit, helping the brain even know that there are other options. So that deep disappointment doesn't become the thing that keeps us stuck from moving forward, but rather more, dare I say, opportunity to pause and notice and check in with ourselves. And in that, connecting to what's going on for us, the experience that you can have with God connected to the reality of what's going on for you, it's powerful. And so I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you do get to have those experiences with God. And even if it's just being able to have emotions that don't feel safe to have with other people or with God, that you're able to have some of that. And I pray that that helps your nervous system feel some calm and relief from the weight of the shame or the disappointment. And I pray for eyes to see, ears to hear, whatever, but just a praying for the choices, opportunities that may not be what you really want, but they are the ones that are going to help, or just different ways of seeing things. What is that for you? Yes, feeling trapped in perspective to help lead to empowerment instead of feeling trapped and helpless. Yeah. In that trap place, when we start to shut down or we push against, like a couple of different nervous system responses, I think I'm speaking mostly of the shutdown response, but it also happens when we're kind of fighting against and trying to prove ourselves and running on exhaustion from that. I want to offer grace for that weariness that you feel, just even noticing in your shoulders and the rest of your body. Oh, man, that has felt heavy. I'm just noticing that. And that's all. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but bit by bit, these things help us release that shame. So we're able to connect with other people and connect with God in a different way that holds our expectations looser and says, okay, this is the idea that I have, but Lord, help me to be okay when it doesn't play out the way I want it. Help me find the resources and lean into you for like discernment, wisdom when other people don't do what they should do. Help me understand what I can do because you've designed me to be things that I don't even see yet. There's such a beautiful design in me. I don't feel it yet, but help me to experience that with you. So I hope this is helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you're watching this later. And I'll also I think I'm going to put in the newsletter sometime, maybe some different topic ideas and do some voting and see what comes up first based on some different questions that I've had over time, what topics would be of most interest to you so that I can prioritize them and make sure that the things I'm doing are serving you well. Since we all have limitations, what is going to serve you well? That is also in the back of my mind. Oh, the two things that I did not mention, which now it's at the end, and who knows who's still here. I think there's one person right now at the end of the hour. I'm doing a workshop I'm doing a summit presentation in a couple weeks, February 12th through the 14th or something like that. I'll be sending it out to my newsletter list with many other speakers on flourishing after abuse, and that is for uh, usually Christian women, but not always women who have experienced spiritual abuse, emotional abuse, coercive control in some way. And I'll be speaking in one of the summit talks for that. And then I'm also doing a workshop using the Unleash Sheets tool and process, unleashing your belovedness at the Call to Peace retreat in North Carolina, which you can look up Call to Peace and the retreat in North Carolina. It's in May this year, and I'll be doing a workshop there. So I look forward to that. If I get to see you at any of those, please let me know. I would love to know that you're there, and hoping to do additional workshops where we're doing a dedicated we're having dedicated time to explore and process something specific so that it helps you move forward. For example, one idea that I've had is a reflect and reset, which I know a lot of people kind of do this concept. I was hoping to do it in January and have the workshop ready, but it's just not. I had to take care of some of these other things. So that's okay. We'll do it when I'm able to. But this would be an opportunity to evaluate different areas of our lives, particularly if you're in a season of transition, to help you kind of slow down and go through some of that process to evaluate what is uh, like what things matter to me, what have I neglected, or what have I enjoyed in the past. Like we're going to explore different things and then also give space for um, connecting in the group and having experiences. So these are all experiential workshops. We're not just getting information, but you're hopefully having a different experience that helps you um, release things. I don't even know how to put it. I don't want to put healing because I also have to put the disclaimer. This is not therapy. I am not doing therapy. This is informational purposes only. It's all education. Because I am a licensed therapist, that LPC associate, I need to put that out there. But we can have experiences in groups, and my job as a facilitator is to facilitate that process. So not just the information, but allowing the space for the experience for just yourself with God and then also with other people. That's part of what I want to do in these workshops. And ideally, I'd like to do them, every other month, maybe once a month, something like that, when I can get to it. Pray for support, pray for my own provision for just the tools and even the resources to be able to do all that. Um, and to focus on the ones that are most important. So, yeah, okay, complex trauma as a possible topic. Absolutely. If you have a specific question around complex trauma, like what is it or how does it show up, and I think of things like how does complex trauma show up in the churches and our church communities that we miss, or in relationships, and how do we respond to others that actually compound the trauma? What can we do in meeting other people in complex trauma? So those are some things that I think about around that particular topic. And those would be really good for a video podcast slash. So, okay, on the right track. That's great. Thank you for your feedback. I really, really appreciate that because I do want to be making sure that the content I offer is helpful. Okay, with that in mind, I will update to the newsletter. If you're not signed up, you can go to joleneunderwood.com and you can sign up there. I think even joleneunderwood.com/subscribe. And I'll keep you updated and let you know when I'm doing the live meetup and what the future topics are. So what it is and how to approach it in order to heal. Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to write that down after we get off this. Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for those who showed up today and those who will listen to this video in the future. And thank you for the work that you are already doing. Thank you for how you see each of us, how you see the person who's listening to this right now that is beyond what we may even feel like we can take in as good, because it doesn't feel like we should be able to have that much good coming from you, that much love. And I pray that the person who's listening would receive one more layer, a few moments of really taking that in, how you see them, and that it is beyond how they see themselves, and that you have good things in mind, even when there's consequences, even when we do things wrong and we need to change things up. You're bringing us through hard things. You have good in mind for us. You desire us to experience more of your goodness and more of the goodness in your design in us now. And I pray that each of us would lean into that and receive more of that from you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, take care, everybody.